How's it going, my fellow Kryptonians? Welcome to my Superman and Lois DC Fandome Part 2 breakdown, if you will, of all of the new details we got from the panel, which was by far the biggest and most informative panel, I would say. By the way, it reminds me, I have already covered a breakdown video of all the new details we got out of the Titans extended panel and the Flash extended panel. You're probably seeing the thumbnails on screen right now, but by far, Superman and Lois gave us the most tangible stuff, which you can imagine is because it's not like they've had a previous season, so it's not like they got a recap like a lot of the other panels did and how the actors think about what their characters did in certain arcs. This was all about advertising the new season in the sense of what they're going after, what the dynamics going to be like between this new family post-crisis, since Clark now has 2 teenage boys. You get the idea. I've been apprehensive about this show in a cautious aspect. It's not to say I'm not excited about it, but I don't even want to use the word excited because I don't want to get my hopes up to maybe as a result perhaps be let down, which I really don't want to do. I know lots of people already have opinions about Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, saying, oh, he's not a good Superman. I've always from the beginning really liked Tyler Hoechlin. Maybe it's because I saw him in other stuff. Maybe there was a little bit of a bias there. I kind of liked the casting of Superman. I feel like he does embody a Superman in what we've seen him in. I have not really liked how he was put on the back burner all the time in comparison to Supergirl. That's very transparent in the crossovers and stuff like that. I've still very much so enjoyed his interactions on screen, but those of you who have seen Tyler Hoechlin's Superman in CW appearances, it's always like Superman flick, like he's just a little scrub, and I don't feel like he was portrayed to be the Superman that Tyler could bring him out to be, and that is what this show I think will ultimately do. I guess we should start off with what Jim Lee asked in terms of how is this show going to be different from previous adaptations, how are they going to do it differently than what's been done before, and Todd Helbing is the executive producer. He was the one on the panel kind of answering a lot of these questions, and he responded initially that the main way is that Clark and Lois are married in this version, and that they're not only married, but they have 2 teenage boys. And he mentions how Clark Kent obviously doesn't really age that much. This is Jim Lee saying this, that they both look too young to have teenage kids, which is definitely leaned upon in the show, with the Clark aging aspect. Beforehand, we can't forget how in the beginning of Crisis, and we'll get onto this actually, they had little baby, Jonathan, and now there's 2 teenage boys. It's just like, oh, yeah, Tyler Hoechlin, does he really look that old? And that's going to be interesting. I think there will be probably a few nods to that when they're living in Smallville, and it's like, wait, you look a bit young to be a dad. Todd Helbing does say, as a father himself, having 2 teenage boys, that felt like a really great way to bring in some personal experience, just to tell really a story that is as grounded as it possibly can be with Superman in it. And as a couple, we really get to lean into Clark and Lois, not necessarily kind of be Superman and the most famous journalist in the world, but really as parents. Like, what is that life like when you have jobs like that, which a lot of people can relate to nowadays with a lot of families that have, 2 working parents, and a lot of complexities that come along with having jobs like that. Obviously, Superman saving the world, Lois doing that more or less in her own way with words. Then obviously having 2 boys, 2 kids that have completely different skill sets, and how do you deal with that being parents, especially those 2 parents? And to be honest, yeah, you can only imagine, and I am basically low-key excited. I'm not going to deny it now, because it's like, at first I think I was put off with this premise, just in how when you think Superman show, you don't necessarily think 2 teenage boys, and that being quite the family dynamic. But now, after hearing the stuff we're even going to get into even more in this, it's just like, wow, the opportunities that are going to present, I think are going to be very, very interesting, especially 2 sons of Superman. But what is the reason they've gone back to Smallville from Metropolis? And I know some people may have read the leaked script, but they do dive into that in a sense, a very vague sense. Don't worry, no spoilers. And Todd Helbing does point out that, yeah, usually the story of Superman outside of the Smallville TV show is usually set within Metropolis. So what they want to do is tell a story where you have these parents, after a tragic event that happens, move back to Smallville and really find that it's easier to raise kids, maybe in a place where life isn't so hectic as it is in Metropolis. And that's when Jim Lee then asks about Crisis, bringing in Superman and Lois into Earth Prime, obviously, because the Earths merged. What role is that going to play in the future storytelling? This is when Todd Helbing then recaps kind of what I've already been over. So obviously essentially Crisis was an opportunity to age up the boys, create 2 of them, and have them as teenagers where things get real complicated as parents. And yeah, I mean, I think, Superman dealing with adolescent kind of super kids potentially coming into their own manifesting abilities, which you would have to think is going to happen. Probably one more than the other, I'm guessing, and varying in different degrees. And also being hormonal, being freaking just teenagers. You could only imagine potential family drama that just, I'm sure we can all relate to that through some extent or another. And then imagine if you had, I don't know, just the impulses of a teenager. Sometimes you might react impulsively to a situation. Imagine doing that as Superman's kid. It's gotta be messy. And I can't wait for the lessons that Clark may teach these 2 boys, which I'm sure he will, with the responsibility of the weight that they carry with potential manifesting Superman abilities, Kryptonian abilities. But they are kind of half human, half Kryptonian, we have to remember. So it's going to be a bit more interesting in that sense as well. Now, as for their own experiences and what they can kind of bring to this as, obviously these characters, Superman and Lois, but also as parents now, Elizabeth Tulloch, for example, is a mum, and she kind of goes into how both characters are really kind of dedicated to both of their careers and their jobs. Lois wants to change the world with her words, and Superman with his power, but also how much that is kind of alienating their kids, and how good can you really be at your job if you have 2 teenage boys who are hormonal and who have very desperate needs. Elizabeth basically said she found that storyline very, very compelling, and I find it interesting where she says very desperate needs. That could be derived into multiple different explanations. Very desperate needs, it could go back to what I was saying with if there are manifesting abilities because of the half Kryptonian DNA. You could argue there may be certain abilities manifesting in one kid, and then the other kid maybe presenting other stuff, or one, for example, may be slightly better behaved, but the other kid could be more impulsive. Think, if you watch Stargirl, like Rick Tyler, our man in Stargirl season 1, he kind of acted like that a bit. Imagine Clark Kent and Lois having to deal with a kid, keeping the secret of the family as Superman, but also keeping them in line. I know I've said that quite a few times already, but I think that is what's really attracting me to this as a fan. It's made me a lot more compelled to be anticipating the show in a good way, whereas before I was like, I don't really know. I like Tyler Eklund and Superman, but is this going to be like another kind of CW show where it's a bit like, But no, I'm actually genuinely fairly looking forward to it. As for Tyler, he talks about the kind of uncle lens that he has with quite a few nieces and nephews, or just how his dad used to go to work all the time being a doctor in the emergency room. So to see him do that and being older now, and how much time is taken up going towards a career, drawing on that with the show being Superman and balancing life being a dad, yeah, you can only imagine the strain that would put upon Clark. I really like this explanation he gave here with how he goes into, I feel like there's an interesting thing going on over the years where what we do in our professional lives and work lives does require so much more. And that's the thing about Superman, is that there is so much needed of him. It's like, when do you turn it off? When is it okay to turn it off? When is enough enough? Because you do have other things in your life that might be in a different way, not as macro, it might be more micro, but it doesn't make it any less important. These are the people that count on you for something that only you can fulfill within that structure of a family. So yeah, I feel like that kind of explanation really just does personify everything about this show. But this is where we get a bit more tangible information about Lana Lang and the other supporting cast members of the show that we'll be seeing in season 1. So he actually asks, which of the other members of the supporting cast of Superman do you want to kind of bring in and activate into the fold? And they were talking about, apparently the other day, about how love triangles are a fairly important part of the Superman mythology, which is when Todd says it's fun to, when they go back, that Lana Lang is there. Lana was Clark's first love, and I think it's an interesting dynamic as an adult, how you deal with that relationship. He emphasizes that it can't be Superman, Clark Kent, if you will, ever having an affair on Lois, that's never going to happen. And they also don't want to exactly have Lois and Lana brawling, but that dynamic as an adult is very interesting to us. Those feelings are impossible to ignore, and I think that's a real thing for some people. And then to see her husband, and he's referring to Lana here, and her kids, and that dynamic, there was a couple of characters that we invented. Carl Cushing Cushing, her husband, and Sarah Cushing, who gets sort of wrapped up with the boys, and then they have their own kind of love triangle. I suppose what we can appreciate here is just to see a future setting of these two characters we knew who once had a past just be around each other again a lot more, since Clark is back in Smallville with children, and now she has children as well. And I guess as well, another thing is, obviously, this might be very well what they meant. Clark's boys being teenagers and Lana's kids potentially being teenagers may very well be about those characters getting to know each other, like the younger generation, in a similar way to how Clark may have got to know Lana, well, did get to know Lana when they were kids. Now, you have half Kryptonian kids getting to know potentially Lana's kids, and I suppose maybe get into a love triangle, which is kind of weird. It's going to be like a bit of a Smallville beat, I suppose, with keeping some powers secret, but maybe one of Lana's kids, Sarah, I'm guessing, may be finding out about it. And then you can just imagine Clark could advise his kid on how to deal with, like, the fact that, you know, if other people find out about your powers, what this means, and that because he's been through that himself with Lana and Lois and other people. And then there's another character, General Lane, Lois's father. Todd Helbing goes on to say, and his relationship with the two of them, he's obviously a very military guy, so he sort of looks at Superman like his soldier, and his relationship with Lois is a little fraught because of the way he took his job when he was a parent versus the way that Clark is doing his job. So all of that messiness is very fun. Now, Jim Lee, this is where I think this is fairly important as well, does go on to say, I'm sure at his heart this show is still very much so about the superheroes and supervillains as well. Todd Helbing does kind of reassure fans, I believe, about that in terms of how it's not just family. He does weigh in on it by saying, yeah, so I think there's a lot of set pieces, a lot of heroics, but to us, what's just as interesting is when Superman goes out and saves the day, or when he fights a villain, or stopping a nuclear reactor from exploding. Lois is out there hunting a different sort of villain and using her own superpowers, if you will, to be just as effective. So you can see them as a team, kind of this unstoppable force, which is a lot of fun to play. And then lastly, but something that I think was absolutely necessary, because a lot of people have opinions on this, even though it wasn't like too bad, is the Superman suit. We're getting a new Superman suit. I did say I wanted this from the panel, and you know, I'm still low-key surprised because they made it sound like it was like designed. So yeah, again, just like the Batwoman panel and stuff like that, I don't get why they didn't take this opportunistic moment with DC Fandome Part 2, despite the show being a little whiles away from coming out, to just show some concept designs. Like, that would have been trending within the DC TV community, maybe even DC, that could have gone that far because it's Superman. Todd Helbing did say, yeah, let's make a new suit, so there's going to be a really badass Superman suit in this show that I'm pretty excited about. Despite this being probably the best panel, in my opinion, for new information, I do feel like they missed out on an opportunity to really get some fans talking about it a bit more. I know, like, you could argue people would just be watching these panels, they soak up the information, but no matter what, that would have been such easy advertisement. Whether the suit's made or not, I'm sure it has been, you know, there's been fittings and this, that, and the other, but at least the concept, that would have got fans very hyped. And I don't think that's giving away too much. I don't think they should necessarily go with the attitude, oh, we want to hide it behind the curtains for like another reveal another time. This would have been the time to do it. But I guess, you know, I'm not really complaining. I'm glad we're getting a new suit. The existing suit, whilst it was a Superman suit, and I think Tyler Hoechlin does look like a Superman, it wasn't the best. So I really, really can't wait for, like, think how much more streamlined and how much improvement has gone into the CW superhero suits over the past, I would say specifically 2 to 3 years. They've really stepped up their game a lot more, especially compared to the first, like, 4 years, the infancy of the Arrowverse. This is why my expectations are quite high for this suit, because they have a lot of potential here. This is the next Superman TV show, something that hasn't been done in quite a long time in terms of live action. They have an opportunity to slay it with a Superman suit. So I want to see something good. I want to see something really good, and I can't wait to see it. And I would love for you guys to let me know what you would kind of like to see in the design down in the comments below. I think, personally, I would like them to keep the belt aspect of it. I don't want pants. They could go that way, but I think that would be a mistake, even if it's a completely modernized version. I would like the cape to maybe just go into his neck rather than having the hinges there. More of a Man of Steel vibe, if you will. I think it definitely needs to mirror the kind of texture that Kara now has on her suit. I don't like the kind of seam lines going down. So you have the Kryptonian crest on the current Superman suit that we've seen in the crossovers, but you see like the stitching just go down. So that is more or less guess, all of the tidbits that you would want to know out of the Superman and Lois panel at DC Fandome Part 2. I'm personally looking forward to this show more and more as time goes on. I suppose when it comes to the Arrowverse, other than the Flash, I suppose this is the main thing I would be looking forward to, because Batwoman is like, I'm going to see how that goes, but I'm not watching Legends these days. Black Lightning, I want to catch up with that. I'm more kind of looking forward to the HBO Max, Doom Patrol Season 3, Titan Season 3, the Green Lantern Show, Strange Adventures, that kind of... as I say in a lot of my videos, evolved DC TV. That's like the future of it. Despite Superman and Lois, like, we're going to see where that goes. But if you like this video, guys, as I said, like it, subscribe to never miss out on a future update on Superman and Lois, because I will be covering it, quite literally. Anything that breaks with it, I'll be here. Don't forget to check out the top pinned comment, links to my Discord server, other places to support me like Patreon, as well as my social media. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.